A pacemaker, also known as a cardiac pacing device, is a small device that's implanted in the chest to help regulate the heartbeat. Pacemaker only works when needed and is used to prevent your heart from beating too slowly. Today in IJN Heart News, we will take a look at the evolution of the pacemaker and how it has helped patients with cardiac issues since its first invention in the 1950s. Unlike the pacemaker that we know of today, the first original pacemaker was actually generated through a box on a cart and needed to be charged constantly by a power socket. This method was not ideal given the fact that if there were power cuts, the pacemaker would fail to operate and the life of the patients would be at risk. This went on until the late 1950s, where the founder of Medtronic, Earl Bakken, developed the first external wearable battery-powered heart pacemaker and commercialized the first implantable pacemaker in the 1960s. Medtronic stands for Medical Electronic, a company committed to accelerating access to healthcare technology based in the US.
The name Medtronic actually is Medical Electronics. And this guy's name was Earl Bakken. He's the main guy for Medtronic. So these pacemakers were originally powered by electrical, and they had to be socketed into the wall. All right. So one fine day there was a blackout in Minnesota, and one of his patients was hooked onto this electrical wiring. Died because there was no power to power the generator, right? Dr. Lily Hyde approached Earl Bakken and said, "Can you make me a transistorized battery pacemaker? And then I don't have to worry on this power cut down." So Earl Bakken went back to his garage and then he made him a transistorized battery pacemaker, and that was way back in 1958, and that was the beginning of the portable pacemakers, the transistorized pacemaker. From 1957 to where we are now in 2014 was the first time this leadless pacemaker has been developed. All right, this is the leadless pacemaker, and Medtronic calls it the Micro leadless pacemaker.
No stranger to the latest technology in the cardiovascular and thoracic medical scene, the National Heart Institute is the second country aside from the US to perform the microatrioventricular implantation in the early 2020. IJN has also been involved from the first generation studies back in 2014 to the second generation studies published in 2020. The first generation of the Micro Pacemaker works as a single-wire pacemaker where it paces and senses in the same ventricle, while today the second generation of the Micro Pacemaker can provide atrioventricular synchronization, where the pacemakers can sense in the upper chamber and regulate pacing in the lower chamber, functioning as a dual-chamber pacemaker as explained in detail by Dr. Surinder Kaur.
So, the Micro Pacemaker currently is generally we would use it in patients who have issues with venous access. That means they have they are on dialysis, their veins are blocked, and we can't access into the heart through the upper extremity veins. Then the ideal device will be to use a leadless pacemaker. So currently, the place where we use leadless pacemakers is in much more elderly patients who require infrequent pacing, right? And generally who have venous access issues. That means their veins are blocked and we can't enter into the heart directly through the venous system. Then this will be an ideal form of pacing, right? And then in patients who due to their activities do not want to have a device because they probably like deep sea divers, squash players, younger people, they don't want, because if you have devices, there's chances of the lead getting spoiled, getting fractured, and then going in for a lead extraction. They can decide to opt for this device, but of course there are some limitations. But if you make a shared decision with them, they may opt to go in for the leadless device. But the technology is moving on. Eventually, in time to come, this will be probably using this kind of pacemakers. The leads and the pocket, the generator pacemakers may go out of fashion by, I would say, in another 10-15 years.
IJN is the only center in this region that conducts workshops to bring an in-depth understanding of how the micro pacemakers work, the implantation processes, and the steps needed to be taken after the implantation. Once a participant has gone through the workshop, they will be supervised by a proctor who will guide them through several implant procedures before they can conduct the procedures without supervision. With that, we end today's Heart News. I'm Mariam Azmi reporting for IJN Heart News. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and don't forget to subscribe.